airlines are personalizing, targeting so much on ground. They know their customers so well, all around booking, loyalty, data. This is all there, but they stop at the door of the cabin.
These task forces are not there yet. Now they are.
But they are coming. I like that. Some airlines are building these task forces. When you ask what is LEO SATCOM changing, it's of course also how you can update the software.
That you can basically send content of any kind, being it inventory for shopping, or being it entertainment, or being it maps or destinations, or connecting flights, or whatever you have.
So as an airline, I mean, that all sounds nice, right?
Yeah.
Own your software, think about tons of new use cases. How to get started? I'm Stefanie Schuster, this is Ralph Wagner, and you're listening to Loaded, setting the software agenda for connected aircraft. So, let's get started. Why is it so complicated? What is happening with hardware and software?
Maybe we have a look on the history. So, historically, I think you can see that everybody knows hardware was bought, software was an add-on. Hardware was not hardware was a complicated part, getting it certified, getting it into the cabin, getting the screens into the cabin, getting the cooling right, all of that. It was all hardware driven, and a lot of hardware challenges had to be solved. And so the software was always an add-on. The software was always something that was kind of shipped with the hardware. And this stayed quite a long time. And even if you had passenger devices joining the cabin, like wireless IFE systems, or electronic flight bags on iPads, or crew panels on personal devices, but still, the infrastructure around it stayed proprietary, the software, the hardware. So it took quite a long time to basically see that there needs to be a standard. No, there needs to be something where airlines could really look at a multi-purpose use. And this is, even today, it's an outlier that you really get that working. How many airlines who do that?
And you I mean, this history also set the stage for the current situation, that companies provided what airlines needed back then, this centralizing the responsibility for everything and making out of that a product. So the product has been hardware and software and certification and maintenance, content loading, whatever, all bundled into one.
Yeah,
and that drives contracts, and that drives technical setups, that drives roles inside the airline even.
Even content loading. I mean, content loading it's kind of, I think when we met the first workflows, and we looked at, we are using the cloud to prepare the content and to enhance the data and so on and so forth, and then everything is really super digitalized. And then you need to go on a hard drive. And then you need to send a hard drive somewhere. So it was kind of, what's that? And then you basically need to get to the aircraft, and you need to put it into the air. And it's like, this is so, yeah, it was kind of a surprise, like kind of 10 years ago, how this worked. And when you look from today's perspective, and also when you look at that time, it is complicated. It's not so easy because the connectivity was not there. Especially the connectivity to the aircraft was not there. It was complicated to get reliably into the aircraft. So to get the aircraft connected, to get to security, what is if you can really connect to a server within the cabin. So I think there were a lot of challenges.
And there was a value in that. I mean, there was a reason why it was bundled in the past.
Yes.
And it was needed, it was valuable. everybody became used to it.
Yeah, in the past, yes.
But the situation has changed. Connectivity, you mentioned connectivity. That changes, of course, a lot.
Yes, connectivity is a change. I would say, especially LEO coming up now with Starlink, the Starlink contracts that are signed every day. So this is how it feels. So it feels really disruptive, and it's not about one vendor. It's about the way how connectivity is perceived. And I think from a software standpoint, it changes a lot. It changes a lot how you think software, how you connect software, right? So, I mean, the question is also what it is used for. Now, in the past, it was kind of you are connecting somehow. And you do maybe your work, maybe you get your emails synchronized and so on. But if you have a bandwidth, it's not unlimited, but real big, like bandwidth and latency. I mean,
and it's even not only so much about what the passengers want and use, but what does the airline want? The airline.
Don't you think this is mixed up? Sometimes
it is
what the passenger wants and what the airline wants.
It is, yeah. But as an airline, still, I mean, we had this topic of airlines are personalizing, targeting so much on ground. They know their customers so well, all around booking, loyalty, data. This is all there, but they stop at the door of the cabin, and they should not want to stop there.
Yes,
right?
The way the product is used, right? Their product is used in the cabin.
It is the product, yes.
So I think
and this is one ecosystem. They should see that as one digital ecosystem.
What do you think is the problem that they don't do that?
Well, I think they are not used to see the cabin as part of their software infrastructure. I mean, the cabin, of course, is like you have product teams for IFE and you have product teams for the galley and interior and so on, but they are not so much on the software, and they are not. It's not one team; it's several. And for IFE, for example, I mean, it's still a lot driven by IFE vendors. It's not so much IT teams of the airline really taking control and connecting it with other services, other use cases they have. I think we see in conversations with airlines that IT teams try to get there. At some airlines, they start getting on board. They used to build the apps, the website, booking systems, and so on, but they want to get on board as well. So this is not there. And then also, the product teams thinking about the cabin, software for the cabin as one and not as many.
Yes, from a software perspective, it makes no sense to separate it, right? So you have a service running that interacts with the user or with the crew or with the smart seat cushion or with the lavatory. It actually doesn't. From software perspective, there is not a difference. So I think you're right. The look at the airline IT and how the airline IT could integrate into this ecosystem, that is a really critical thing. And maybe it's not there. Maybe the task forces are not there yet. But
they are coming. I like that. Some airlines are building these task forces.
Yes. For some, it's coming. And what do you think? What do you think of LEO? What do you think does LEO change in that? If the connectivity comes and you get permanently connected to the aircraft?
Well, that finally allows to see this one digital ecosystem, because it's not. I mean, some years ago we were talking about software for the aircraft always in disconnected, like the disconnected environment. That was the buzzword, the term. And it's not disconnected anymore. And it does not need to be so different just because it's on board of the aircraft. Yes, it's much. It's flying, it's a closed environment, but it's connected, and it can be driven by software, same as what you do on the ground.
Yeah, but you still have a difference, right? So I think you still have something to consider, that you need to deploy software on this node. This node is basically not connected to each other. So one aircraft is not connected to the other. So this node is a special node you have from the cloud view. And so when you look from the cloud on the aircraft, it's basically, you can see it as a deployment pipeline and you can receive data from it. But I'm not so sure. I mean, you still need to have something in place that actually controls this environment and understands the specifics of it. But I agree, there is definitely not that many specifics. Like when you heard like 10 years ago, this is 30,000 feet, everything is different.
Really different, yes.
Yeah, it's not completely different.
Yes.
And this is why I also think that the airlines themselves, they will go there and they will utilize that, and they will spread they have to spread their knowledge. They have to build applications and integrations with their passengers and their customers, also within the cabin. I think that's absolute crucial. And cross team. Yeah, go here with cross teams. Software people from everywhere.
And when you ask what is LEO SATCOM changing, it's of course also how you can update the software, which is a big factor in why can we now even split hardware and software? Like we because it will run in so different cycles.
Yes, absolutely. You basically have essentially you have 3 cycles. Now you do have the hardware cycle, you have the software cycle, you have the content cycle, and even the content cycle was always the big discussion over the course of when we talked
monthly.
about
monthly was the big thing already.
Yeah, monthly was the wow. Then you had it, but this going really to real-time content synchronization. The possibility to do that is indeed linked to an aircraft that is permanently connected, and content of any kind, being it log files you have on board that you can basically ship to the cloud of whatever kind of things that happen on board, or the other way around, that you can basically sync content of any kind, being it inventory for shopping, or being it entertainment, or being it maps or destinations, or connecting flights, or whatever you have. So really being able to do this in real time and all the time, I think that does change the software landscape. It does change the whole infrastructure. And I think we also need to talk about what needs to happen within this infrastructure, within these players, that this gets possible. So one thing we talked about, the airline aspiration, but this is not everything, right? So the airlines are not the only one who need to move here.
Definitely not the only ones who need to move, but the ones who need to drive it and who need to own it, from my point of view.
But let's talk about the players in the game, the other players in the game, not only the airlines.
The easy ones or the difficult ones? Let's start with the easy ones. When you mention software, we always talk about, you mentioned the maps and so on. Yes, I mean, that's cool applications which further develop, but they are already there. Sometimes in some talks, it's also about third-party software which is not yet on board of the aircraft, which is also a nice use case from my point of view, because you have a lot of specialized software vendors, startups out there.
Yeah, you have
where we could open the doors, lower the entry barrier to get applications for kids, for medical use cases, for accessibility, for whatever on board of the aircraft.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of vendors in the cloud. So just cloud services running that actually could translate their services also to the cabin, where you can make use within the cabin. You're totally right. So probably these are the parties that could
they should come in. They are not yet in there,
Exactly.
But it would be super cool to think about a setup where such guys could come in.
but we are actually talking about what do we have in the cabin. And what we have in the cabin is the hardware, mainly from IFC and IFE providers. So this is what we have, and this is what we have today. And we do see movements also from other parties that bring servers on board, but not a true multi-purpose environment. So it's usually dedicated to something. It's quite new, this thinking, and I think this multi-purpose environment will probably enter the aircraft also with the connectivity that we have right now. But right now we are dealing with IFE and IFC infrastructure that is, yes, it's challenging to use. It's possible to use it, but it's more challenging to use. And I think this needs to get more open, also especially from software standpoint. So I think that needs to happen, right?
Yes, but I just wanted to ask, multi-purpose server, I mean, how does it differentiate from IFE servers? Is it a technical limitation?
No, I think.
Is it a rather business strategy? What is behind that?
I think if we are looking at the what is offered on the market. So I think when you look on in the past, yeah, it's these servers are made for IFE and for IFC, and I think it always needs a close interaction to actually enhance them and make these servers having a multi-purpose aspect on this. It's possible to do, and I think it will also be done, and it happens also right now. But it is not really an open design. So if you're looking at the new ones, I think what is offered new on the market, this is from the communication side, it's definitely looks like, okay, that looks like an open infrastructure, but there is still pieces missing, a lot of pieces missing. There is really, how do you actually deploy stuff? How do you actually really get your software running there? What do you really get? How do you control it? Who is responsible for which layer? I think that is still open. I did not see something where it's just crystal clear who is responsible for which layer. And I think IFE vendors, because IFC vendors, because they have their hardware on board, they need to think that through because otherwise I believe they will get kind of a niche offer, because you will have on the one hand cloud services entering the cabin, direct cloud services. And if you do not offer a server infrastructure that is truly has an open mindset, nobody will use your servers for caching or for edge caching is a big buzzword. But edge caching needs not a proprietary way how it's done. It needs an open architecture. How do you do this? And if you're not doing this, what happens? We know what happens. Now we are talking with airlines. I mean, what do? They bypass it, right? They just bypass it. So how do you think will it look like in 2-3 years? Will the service be utilized, or will it be just bypassed?
Bypassing here means go to the cloud.
Yes. You take your personal device, you go to the cloud, and you're shopping in the cloud. That's it. And you're leaving the server aside. So I think that this is definitely one. I mean, even on.
But it's I mean, you mean you don't mean as a passenger using your device and just doing whatever you want. You mean even airlines deciding to build their applications for the passenger devices to go directly to the cloud.
Certainly.
Yeah, we see that in airline talks.
And you do have the possibility to build your connecting flight overview, etc. You build your app with the mindset that you know that somebody is using it while flying, or that you can send him notifications while he's flying. You know that. So you could design it in a way, from a software perspective, you can design it in a way that you do not consider that as actually a hardware infrastructure on board, where you could notify on the screen You could notify your passenger. So I think to really do this is to mix it, no?
Exactly, because right now you see those tendencies because it's so hard in the cabin still to see hardware and software separate and just to get whatever kind of software you want on board of the hardware. So yeah, just go to the cloud, which is one way, which is also, I must say, right now really nice to see, cool to see, because it's new. It wasn't possible before.
Because we have a product for that, even.
Yeah, but even apart from streaming, I mean, it's interesting to see that airlines leverage the LEO SATCOM to connect to cloud services. But the next step will of course be, or should of course be, how to connect that. You don't want only the cloud. You want to leverage the infrastructure you have on board and make a smart combination.
Looking at all the services, also cloud services are not an abstract cloud. It's like you do have your Netflix streaming around the corner. It's not streamed from the headquarter of Netflix. It's streamed from a data center that is as near as possible to your home. So that makes sense. It makes sense to utilize an infrastructure on board. It makes sense to run hybrid models, to do really caching, or also to have services running fully on board in case you really have a disconnection or you're flying somewhere where you can't have a connection. So I think that is an absolute valid infrastructure. But it needs to be with a multi-purpose mindset. That I think needs really to happen so that it's utilized. Like otherwise, it will, you're consuming your content out of the cloud, which is, from my perspective, not the perfect way to do. And you also will run at some point in limitations, maybe from the connectivity side, if all your smart cabin, all your avionics data is running over a connection. This is a ton of data. So it does make sense to utilize the server on board. And it does make sense to have a multi-purpose architecture. If there is an IFE or connectivity, it doesn't matter.
So as an airline, I mean, that all sounds nice, right? Own your software, think about tons of new use cases. How to get started? I mean, what's the first, or what's the critical things an airline should care for, own, to have a chance to follow that path?
I don't know. I think you need the teams. You need the software teams, and you need the software teams in a way that they are truly cooperating with each other. Yeah, you mentioned that the teams are distributed among different departments, have different purpose. I think you need basically to get them together from those who develop your app, those who develop your connectivity portal, those who develop your CPAC application. So you need to have a common understanding of what possibilities you have in the future, and also the IoT guys. So and I think that maybe is the first step, maybe even without doing something, right? So what applications you think will come to the cabin first? I think you need to answer that, and then go step by step and introduce application after application. But to verify the infrastructure with a team that looks from different aspects of it, those who maybe run surveillance cameras, those who run the smart trolley, those who have the ordering, those who do the advertising, those who do passenger interaction, entertainment, and so on. So I think it needs to be a common understanding. What is the architecture that we want to have?
And maybe
how many
also
airlines you know that run such teams?
There are airlines pulling together people from different departments, trying to solve it. I don't think that I have seen airlines who truly establish a structure that enables that is meant for making such decisions, but at least already pulling together the people and understanding like what are the critical topics and where should we really work together and make one joint decision instead of having 1, 2, 3 teams trying to fight it through for their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
That is already a good start, I guess. And maybe it's also a topic of searching for common factors. So we have right now a lot of discussions around how to collect data, how
Right.
to store data,
Right.
which is a very generic topic even.
And if I go back in history for this topic, you even had from IoT perspective, you basically had at some time the tendency, looking at the offers, you had like every IoT device started to integrate their own cellular network.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So to basically to synchronize over parallel pipes over cellular, I think, I'm not sure if this is a sustainable way how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you do need a concept how you connect the aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
No? Like one concept,
Mm-hmm.
not hundreds of concepts. So yeah. So from this perspective, absolutely, I agree. They need to get together. And some airlines are doing this. So some airlines
and that's really cool to see.
are starting doing that. And it's really cool, yeah.
I'm looking forward to the AIX in Hamburg to see which departments appear there. You see it changing over the years, that more IT people are coming, that teams appear together. So there you already see how they start addressing the topic.
So, what is your takeaway from software in the cabin?
For me, this airline topic, which we just discussed, is super critical because, I mean, the first topic is always the vendors. The vendors need to open up, which is true, completely true. But the airlines can be stronger if they think internally about how to work and how to address the topics. Also how they appeared when they talk with vendors, which people they even bring to the table. So that is for me like a crucial topic when we talk about how to get into a truly like a more software-driven environment.
Absolutely. And I also think that maybe one thing that is like a key takeaway would be maybe also to think about what is with airlines that do not have the power, don't have big IT teams. So I think this is even not depending on the size of the airline, right? So we even saw very small airlines with super agile IT teams and also quite mid-sized airlines that actually do not have their focus on IT. So I think
as well.
I think yes. So I think that it is also crucial to look at how can you build up the team, how deep can you go, and to be at least aware of, what are your software capabilities, your software strength and weaknesses, to connect your cabin. And I think that is for me the takeaway is the connectivity that is right now used and signed. This will change the landscape and will give a great push for the software side.